I know for myself, and probably much like yourself, right now, I wouldn't say I'm living the life of my dreams. I'm living a life beyond what I ever dreamt possible. And trust me, I got plenty of problems and challenges. I'm not saying I don't. But relative to what I always thought was my destiny, let alone like the upper limit, like, okay, what's my dream? I got crazy enough to let something happen beyond that.
It's odd seeing you here in person when I was just watching your latest hilarious video on YouTube.
Well, for me, it's odd seeing you in person as I'm literally wearing your underwear in the moment.
Yeah, those were the ones. That was my favorite pair. I've worn it for like three years, and I felt like I should go ahead and pass that along to one of the new greats.
Yeah, well, I think the customer service of breaking in the underwear for everybody is, I mean, it's a little bit of a felony, but I think it's also a touch of goodwill.
Yeah, I mean, it's going the extra mile. We try to take an extra step to make sure our customers get the best care in their underwear.
Yeah, and that's something they will appreciate and should probably never know.
And we are live, ladies and gentlemen, with the one and only JP Sears from Awaken with JP, one of the hottest YouTube channels, around. Is it not? Tell me I'm lying.
I'm biased, so, I wouldn't say it's one of the hottest. I'd say it's by far the hottest.
It has.
No, but yeah. I enjoy doing my thing and very grateful for a lot of people around the world wanting to watch the perspectives I convey.
Isn't it wild? Isn't life just kind of crazy?
It's a crazy time we're living in. And yeah, I think life in general, whether we're living in this time or not, it's probably the craziest thing we could ever do. It's quite the adventure.
Yeah, but I mean, to the fact that you are now being watched by millions of people all over the world, like, did you ever think?
No.
How did you start with YouTube and Awaken?
Yeah, it's so weird. It's crazy. I still don't think I really comprehend it, but it weirds me out, like in a good way. But the weirdness is just like, well, I don't know how that happened. I'm just making stupid videos. But yeah, how I got started, never had any kind of plan for YouTube or any kind of videos to be at all a big thing, let alone a consistent thing. But it was October 5th, 2014. That was the day I uploaded my first YouTube video.
Wow.
It was called How to Be Ultra Spiritual. And I was just thinking, this is going to be stupid videos. It's going to watch. I don't even know how to make videos or comedy videos. But I'll tell you, it woke something up inside of me. It was a level of creative satisfaction and fulfillment I'd never known before. I had never had any level of, sorry, my dogs. Wally, hey, that's enough, buddy. Any good podcast has a ruthless dog interruption. But I never had any level of artistic expression, music, dance, like nothing. I was kind of played sports and then went into studying exercise and worked with clientele with personal training. But so it was just like surprise. I think I was 33 years old at the time. Like surprise, like this is creatively very satisfying. So I think it was like 3 weeks after I published my first comedy video, I had this earth-shattering idea. Whoa, what if I made another video? So I did that, but I'll tell you, in the beginning, I had a scarcity consciousness around the videos. It was kind of like, all right, maybe I have this first idea, then like the second idea, but like I'm not going to there won't be any more ideas.
Yeah, you're going to run out of ideas, you felt like, maybe.
Absolutely. But I think after about 9 months of making a video anywhere from once a week to once a month, I realized like, oh, this is like a creative well that isn't really going to run dry. And then I've just been doing my best to Forrest Gump my way along ever since.
You never know what you're going to get with JP Sears.
Life is like a gluten-free box of chocolates.
That's the only, I can't eat any gluten, nothing with gluten in it. I'm joking.
Yeah.
Although I mean, you're in the same, well, you're from Austin, you're fitness, you got educated in fitness, as you just informed me, because I was kind of wondering what you did before. And were you involved at the Onnit Academy at all back?
No,
okay.
No, I wasn't. I lived in Austin for, I've lived here a little over 4 years, but it's interesting, Onnit, speak of the angel, that's one of the major reasons why I moved to Austin. So it was, I think in the fall of 2017,
Wow.
I'm friends with Aubrey Marcus, the founder of Onnit.
For sure.
And he was holding a weekend event at Onnit, and he said, "Hey, JP, can you come to town and do a speech do a talk?" I said, "Sure, not a problem." So my fiance at the time, now wife, she came with me for the weekend, her first time in Austin. And we left that weekend looking at each other, just saying, like, should we move to Austin? There was just this feeling, this vibe, and of course, being around great people and seeing the city is not only a cool city, but beautiful landscapes all around. You know, it's kind of shattered our notion of like Texas is a boring, dry wasteland. West Texas is, but Austin's beautiful, and some of the most inspiring people you'll ever find, pretty well congregated in a small space. So there is that Onnit connection.
Okay, so there is yeah, exactly. I thought there was, and I was living in San Antonio around 2000, well, from 2012 to 2015, and I wasn't really feeling it anymore, and I was going to either move to Austin or come back up here to Colorado, and my daughter living here in Colorado won the coin toss there. But Austin, I was so close, and I joined the Onnit Academy, and I was driving from San Antonio to Austin just to go work out with Primal Soldier and some.
Eric and his brother Juan. They're crazy.
So yeah, and because I just there was an attraction drawing to Austin from Onnit, and which is connected to Joe Rogan and and I was a huge fan, still am, and so I was trying to just get involved. We were like slipping packages to Aubrey of SHEATH, and he just so busy, as you're well aware of probably now how you are busy, and I'm now starting to get like a glimpse of people reaching out to you, kind of wanting to be affiliated with you in some kind of way because of what you're doing. And so I don't hold any, ill feelings for him not responding.
Oh, well, you should. Aubrey told me personally he despises you. He was offended by these packages.
I knew it. I knew it. He's too handsome. I knew I wasn't good enough. Okay, so the truth comes out. All right, that's fine.
Take it personally. That's one of the 4 agreements to have a good life. Just take everything personally.
Yeah, and then you get revenge. That's
exactly.
that. And I was gonna say I'm coming for you, Aubrey, but he golden parachuted out from, as far as I know. They sold, right?
He did. Yeah, I think it was slightly over a year ago that Onnit sold, and I'm so happy for Aubrey because he's worked his butt off to create something amazing and got a great reward for it, and then his heart is now in a different place than the ethos of Onnit, though it's like that's still a part of Aubrey. Now he's much more interested in helping people at a much more introspective, spiritual, level. Psychological level. Yeah.
I mean, I just took some Alpha Brain. Shout out back one more shout out to Onnit, and I take Shroom Tech because I live in 8,500 elevation, And so they say that the cordyceps mushrooms helps you process oxygen better at high altitudes. So pretty much every day I'm taking the Shroom Tech. I'll take Alpha Brain sometimes. I'm still testing positive for COVID right now, I finally got it. I thought I was like one of the last remaining people I was like, I can't get it. I have too strong of an immune system. But what had happened was like I had people come in from out of town. We're drinking, we're playing poker, we're going to comedy, we're going to fights, and like 4 nights in a row of just kind of partying. And then the last night I got like no sleep, and the next day it hit me. So that's how.
Those are ingredients for putting the immune system on on the down low.
Yeah, it got redlined, and then it just was like, okay, we're done.
Yeah. Well, congratulations for getting it. That's very inclusive of you. It kind of makes you a conspiracy theorist if you don't get it. It's like, what are you trying to deny reality here? Just get the damn disease.
Yeah, get in line with the program. I was and my wife had gotten it like 2 months earlier, and for 10 days, practically, she had it. And I'm sleeping right next to her for 10 days and didn't catch it.
Yeah.
And like 2 months later, I caught it. And what's funnily enough, like my daughter came to visit. She was home from college for a couple of days. And as she walks in the door, I'm wearing my I Will Not Comply Awaken with JP hoodie. And she just said, ha ha.
Well played by your daughter. I love that.
Yeah, that's funny. I was like, okay, I still stand by my decision to just get it. I've always been like that with the flu. Is like, I'll take my chances. If I get it, I'll get the flu, and then now I'm vaccinated. So now I'm vaccinated, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
inoculated.
Inoculated. I've always had the same view of the flu and COVID, which I personally put in the same category, where it's just kind of like, I'm not worried if someone says, hey, I have the flu or I just did. And also looking at it like, well, if you get the flu, it sucks, or it can suck. Sometimes it's mild, but you'll actually have a stronger immune system because of it. And I'm not a doctor, so pardon my thinking that I think is correct, but probably isn't. If you don't get the flu for a long time, the flu virus, it's a virus. It naturally mutates, kind of gets stronger. So if you don't get it for a long time, then you get it, years into the future, you don't have as much strength in the immune system to fight it off. So I think that's one of the reasons I've rationalized I don't want to get it, but I'm not scared to get it.
Yeah, there's nothing, just take it from me. It's nothing to be scared of. It was kind of like a forced vacation. I had to like sit down and watch movies for a week, and it could be a lot worse. It just kind of sucked because I like you, I like to be active and do shit and, use my body to just stay like physically fit, because by staying physically fit I find I'm more mentally fit, and then etc. So it's been hard in that regard, but today is like day 11 or 10, and I thought I was going to test negative. I was like, I'm better, and then it was positive. Can
I ask, did you take everyone's favorite horse dewormer?
I did, but what sucked is I didn't take it preventatively, because I had been for like 6 months, like kind of religiously or whatever, and of course I got complacent, like, and then we had gone to Vail for a LFA, I don't know, it's Legacy Fighting Alliance. It's a smaller fighting organization. We sponsored it, and so we had front row tickets and VIP table, and all my friends went, and I should have taken it. I should have fucking taken it as a prophylactic, like a rubber, but I didn't.
You were just raw dogging the virus.
I was raw dogging the world. And it fucking got me. But I had taken it when my wife got it, I had taken, it's very same situation. It was like 2 months before we went to an LFA fighting event in Vail, and I had come back, but I took the Ivy Wild, Ivy, can't say it. And I think it works. People say it doesn't work. I didn't get it for like the whole time I was taking it. And then when I stopped taking it, I ended up getting it. And once you've got it, you can't, it's not like it'll get rid of it. You know what I mean? Because it's got to be pre-infection.
Yeah, I believe, again, not a doctor, but I was talking to now the late Dr. Zelenko about the horse deworming drug. And he talked about how preventatively very powerful, and also at the very early on stages of onset. But I think once you get too deep into being sick, then it's kind of like a fair bit less effective. And I know I take it, the past year or so, anytime I feel anything start to come on, I'll take it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, like, was my destiny I would have gotten sick, or was I just a bit low for a day and it was going to go off anyway. So, but that's my experience with it.
No, and I did take, like, as I was driving home from Vail, I called my wife and I was like, I need a big old thing of water, because I had like no water for a 3-hour drive home. It was just a poor planning all the way around on that trip. And I was like, give me 2 ivermectin and some vitamins. I don't even know if I took the vitamin C, some zinc. And so it might have been maybe it like prevented it from being worse, that whole theory.
Yeah.
Well, it would have been worse if you didn't take it. You would have died. I would have died. Who knows?
Man, I love how everyone's a doctor now. Like, just whether it's the news or me or you or some Yahoo, it's just, no, let me tell you how it would have been if you didn't do that. Like, it would have been worse. Like, how do you know?
Dude, my mom is on her 4th booster. Shout out to my mom. And she's like, you should have got the vaccine. I'm like, well, I didn't, so we're a little late now, and that's not helping. And everyone is like backing their opinion with so-called facts, and
dude,
so
confirmation bias. There's no shortage of it in our world today, and certainly including myself, I fall into that.
Yeah, I mean, but okay. You are like the sum total of the 5 people you hang out with the most. I'm sure you've heard that phrase. And I'm reading this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yeah,
it's really good. And he talks about how, if everybody's going along with a certain narrative and you're not in line with that narrative, if everybody's doing it, at first, if it's just like 1 or 2 people, you'll be like, you're crazy. But then if everybody's doing it, you start going, well, am I crazy? And in today's age, with like the emperor wears no clothes, it's like, am I crazy, or is he awesome?
Man, it's weird. And I think on my good days, I acknowledge kind of what we alluded to earlier. Like, I think everyone's crazy, period. Just like which version of crazy, how crazy are we being? And so I don't think we can avoid crazy. I think we're swimming in that ocean right now.
Well, you're never going to survive unless you get a little crazy. Yeah, that's right. So Seal called it all those years ago. And I believe that, I wouldn't have done what I've done. Maybe you wouldn't have done what you've done if you weren't like crazy enough to maybe believe just a little bit that it was possible. I had I always wanted to kind of be a little, we all do kind of want to be stand out and amongst our peers and do something more. But I was reading a lot of books on success and stuff before I came up with the idea for Sheath, and we could go into my whole story. But after opening my mind up to the potential and the possibility of something more or whatever, that's when I had the idea, and then going for it required me to take that leap of faith and visualize and stuff like that. Do you have principles of the law of attraction, or you mentioned the 4 agreements?
Yeah, all that stuff is so meaningful to me. I was 19 years old when I got into reading success self-help books. I remember I had Tony Robbins cassette tapes. I mean, tapes, just dating myself for crying out loud. But, Think and Grow Rich, all the classics. And then
that's my favorite book.
Yeah, so many. And then, on the subject of crazy, I think that a certain amount of crazy relative to how we are is necessary to live beyond what we think is possible, because we all have our limiting beliefs. But when they're ours, we just call them our beliefs. And of course, we back all of our beliefs up, whether they're empowering or disempowering. We back up all of our beliefs with stories and rationalizations about why they're true. Doesn't mean they're true, just means we start to believe they're true. So I think we need to get crazy relative to our limited beliefs in order to go on the other side of them. Because I think that formula for me is basically stop believing your beliefs. And that sounds crazy. It's like they're my beliefs, and I have all this empirical data from my life that I use to justify these beliefs. But I know for myself, and probably much like yourself, right now, I wouldn't say I'm living the life of my dreams. I'm living a life beyond what I ever dreamt possible. And trust me, I got plenty of problems and challenges. I'm not saying I don't. But relative to what I always thought was my destiny, let alone the upper limit, okay, what's my dream? I got crazy enough to let something happen beyond that. And I think the more sane we are, not sane in a clinical sense, but sane in the sense of we are loyal to our own mind and loyal to our own beliefs. The more sane we are in that respect, the more anchored we are into basically the center of gravity of what our beliefs and therefore their limitations currently are.
Okay, so my mind was kind of going a direction when you were sane and grounded, and some people might say, you need to be realistic.
Yeah.
And I'm I would rather live in this so-called fantasy world where my dreams are possible rather than them being realistic, in the sense that I, need to pay the bills and just do what everyone else does and just get keep your job. And I was doing really well in the Army and in any of my previous jobs. I always kind of excelled at whatever I was doing. I have a bit of a competitive nature to me, and so anybody around me, I'm gonna try to outshine them, I guess. What sport did you play in high school? Sports?
Yeah, so when I was younger than high school, I played everything available: baseball, soccer, football, basketball, track and field. And then when I got to high school, okay, now the seasons are longer. You're supposed to take them more seriously. I played high school football and track.
Wow.
My first year of high school. And then I got pretty disenfranchised with the I would call it emotionally abusive behavior of the football coach, where when I was in middle school, it's dude, football is fun. And I was pretty good. I get to high school, I'm still pretty good. I got my varsity letter as a freshman.
Wow.
But it isn't fun. It was, It's kind of I look at the tyrants in the world today, it's that's how the coach behaved. And there was just nothing fun about it. And in my mind, this probably won't shock you to say that I don't take a lot seriously. I get serious at times, but like my true nature, like I like to be lighthearted.
Yeah.
So I just couldn't get on board with taking high school football so fucking seriously. Like we need to yell and shame each other and act like this actually matters, which by the way, when we're playing in a way where we view it as just a game, I play much better. So I stopped playing football after my freshman year, and then doing track, I was like, well, this is kind of over it. So I did that my sophomore year of high school, then stopped. And then I just basically got into being very dedicated to working out, kind of bodybuilding-ish.
Okay.
I was delusional enough to think maybe I could be a pro bodybuilder. Not even close.
That's one of our team members just did his first professional bodybuilding competition. It was last year, and it was all this buildup. And he fucking took like 3 months off work practically he kind of just did it. He wasn't necessarily supposed to, but I kind of let him because we sometimes allow people to pursue their dreams outside of SHEATH, as long as you're making sure you get everything you need to get done for SHEATH. And all the buildup and everything, and then he came in like dead last, like out of everybody, and it was.
But it was still at a professional level.
Yeah, it was and now this year, he's doing it again, and he's just like more dedicated. And my point isn't to like poke fun at him; it's to like point out that you can fail your way forward, and as long as you learn from those failures, and shout out to Steven. He's my boy. So it's funny because I tried out for football my sophomore year, and when they put you in those circles where you have to like run at each other and smash into each other, I was the smallest guy on the team, or probably like the second smallest, and even the smallest guy was smashing me, and I'm just like, okay, this is not for me.
Dude, I remember those circles, and it's definitely barbaric. I think it's very appropriate for football. I mean, that's not a gentle sport whatsoever, but I remember those circles, and I remember being a freshman and I'm doing the thing with like the first and second year players, and they're like, well, 3P, you're doing pretty good. Go over there with the juniors and seniors, now do it. And I'm like, oh, okay, they all outweigh me by 50 pounds easily. Yeah. And then I felt some intimidation.
Yeah, that was no fun for me. But the reason I brought up sports, I guess, and like because of a competitive nature that I have, which I was always striving so hard just to be average. Yeah. That it really developed a work ethic in me that wherever I went, whatever I did after that, and I kept, even though I never made it anywhere, obviously, I played basketball, and it was just like, I was too slow, I was too short, I was too white, and I'm just kidding about the white part, but I couldn't compete. But because I tried so hard over like from 9 to like 16, I really developed a strong work ethic, and so it carried over in profession and in the army and stuff. And now, and here we are, and I have my own business, and I'm but I don't really compete against the other businesses. I was watching a Gary Vee video this morning or something, and he was like, I don't even look at my competitors. I don't know their name. I don't give a fuck what they're doing. I'm focusing on my shit, and that's it.
Yeah, I listened to, I think it was Joe Rogan recently had on Gabor Mate. He's a doctor, and they were talking about how like traumatized people, which is kind of all of us, competition can be a way they compensate for that. And one level is you're always competing with other people. But what I would judge to be a much better level is then you learn to compete with yourself, not in the sense of like, I'm good enough and worthy if I reach X goal or do better than I once did, but more from the perspective of life is good and it gets better the more we expand. And the best measuring stick is who we used to be and how good we were doing, whether it's business or whatever the metric is. So much like you, I look around with what I do and whether it's other comedians, and I just feel nothing but inspired by them. I feel zero sense of competition, yet that competitive edge, I turn towards myself and I feel it towards myself. And I love that. I wouldn't want it to change. And I think similar to you, I learned, I think, a pretty good work ethic at a younger age. And that's why I think a good work ethic, no matter how we are motivated to learn it, whether it's like, hey, I'm average at sports, so I've got to really work my butt off. That's such a gift.
Yeah.
And I hear some various sports analysts talk about, I follow pro motocross, and they've talked about how, someone who's like they're 10 years old, they're just a natural talent, so they don't have to really work hard. They track a lot of those guys, and some of them, like once they reach the professionals, they'll have a year or two of success. Then they fizzle out because they've just leaned on sort of this natural talent of being better than other people. But now you're in the pros, and it's like everyone here is that talented, but they don't have the work ethic as a foundation to stand on. So, and then, did you watch Michael Jordan's Last Dance?
Of course, two times.
So you learn, when I was a kid, I was delusional enough to think someone like Michael Jordan or any like star athlete or star actor, they don't work hard. They just have this natural gift. But the ones we know about, we start to learn, like we study psychology, self-growth, so we know how to recognize when people are speaking that language. When we learn like, oh, Michael Jordan was so good because he worked harder than anybody else. He had other things going for him too, for sure. Kobe Bryant, same thing. He more hours in the gym taking shots, and you think about Malcolm Gladwell's concept of 10,000 hours to mastery, and you learn like they just did more volume than anybody else. They had this amazing work ethic. We don't see that. You don't see that on the highlights. You just see this amazing talent and therefore think it's all that is. At least that's what I thought when I was.
Of course.
But
yeah, they're just naturally gifted. But it's like the people that were naturally gifted from a young age didn't have to develop the work ethic because they were so naturally gifted. And then when they run into other people that are naturally gifted that also put in the work ethic, then they're going to fall short,
Exactly. So given that adversity is what creates strength, the muscle can only be as strong as the weight is heavy. I think now as a adult, I can look at not being gifted as a gift, because that's what creates I know some people who they started a company and whatever, the winds were just blowing. They started it at just the right time. And it was like they did some hard work, but it was kind of like a beautiful serendipity. They got very successful. They exited. Then they start company number 2 without much of a strong work ethic. And you see like, oh, they can't replicate their performance unless they really commit to the beginner's mind of developing a strong ass work ethic.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like that I have imposter syndrome or whatever, like that happened to me. Like I was just in the right place at the right time. I had this idea. I put the idea forward and, but like 10 years later, I guess it's more than 10 years at this point, call it luck. I don't know, call it what you want. I still feel like it was, I just got lucky to have been, and there is a bit of luck involved, whenever you go for your dream, like if you read the law, the Secret, the Law of Attraction, Think and Grow Rich, it's like the universe will acquiesce to your wishes once you've passed the test of showing that you're not going to quit, you're not going to give up. Yeah, then it was like, okay, we're going to give you a couple breaks.
Yeah, it's weird. It does seem to work that way. And I think what I've had to, when I was, I think 19 or 20, that's when I first heard the term law of attraction.
Nice.
And I would go to the bank and get this huge stack of deposit slips. And I would sit at my desk for 20 minutes a day, writing out the deposit. I think in my mind, like, dude, if I made $20,000 a month, like that was kind of like, dude, I could barely believe that that's possible. But I'd fill out deposit slip after deposit slip for $20,000.
That's so cool.
Month. Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's fun to think back at that. But I was just fixated on the law of attraction. It hadn't gotten through my thick skull that the law of attraction, for it to work, requires the law of action. Like you've got to, just like you said, you've got to show the universe, I'm here to play. I'm here. I'm not going to back down when there's the first sign of adversity. Yeah. So you put the action where your thoughts are. It took me a while to learn that.
No, but man, that's so funny. I remember I was 19 sitting in a boardroom that I wasn't supposed to be in because I just did like administrative payroll type data entry and stuff. But during my lunch break, I would go and sit in the boardroom and I would have these imaginary conversations with, I'm getting like emotional because it's funny hearing you say all the same stuff and we're both kind of on a similar trajectory. We're same age-ish. I had to like ram it in my thick skull, like repetition over and over, because we're so conditioned to believe, the process of school, college, whatever, like work, retirement, etc. Like you got to break that mold, and to break the mold, you got to play this little mental game of, it's all kind of laid out in these books, but of like visualizing the potential, just visualizing it, but writing yourself checks or writing deposit slips, like it's in the blueprint of success from what I've heard from, all the greats that have done it before, and just seeing your success and hearing you say that you did those things too. Cause that's what I did shit like that. I have a fucking check on my wall for $1 million, like I wrote a check to myself, I'm still waiting to cash it.
Can you write me one of those checks too, Robert? I just want to see if that one works.
That one might work actually. And obviously, the company does millions, but when I don't make all the money. I don't just keep it all.
You have a company. It takes a lot of blood to circulate through that thing, I realize. So you were saying, you going back to when you were 19, you were in the boardroom. Who was it that you were having the conversations with in your mind?
I mean, the Abraham Lincoln was one, which is kind of in like Benjamin Franklin. And I think I was using some of the suggestions that Napoleon Hill suggested, but these old great thinkers of the past who were and I never really considered myself an intellectual. So I would put people, and Napoleon Hill was in there himself. And I don't even remember what I would ask them, but it was a very fun exercise because they actually would answer, but it was coming from my own mind, obviously. But you can like draw from the universe if you ask, I think.
Yeah, and I think that it really is like, okay, now you be the voice of Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, it's your own mind, but I think that's like Gestalt therapy. It activates a part of your brain and a part of your mind that is dormant, but probably very powerful. It's dormant when you just think you're being you. And I would do something similar at the time. I would have conversations with Bob Proctor.
Oh, I love Bob Proctor. He died recently. I don't know if you know that.
He did, yeah. Brian Tracy, Tony Robbins, and I don't know if it's serendipity, but like now, like I was just exchanging voice notes with Tony Robbins today. I'm grateful to call him a friend, but
are you serious?
Yeah, like I just wonder, like back when I was, over half my life ago, having imaginary conversations with him, did that like pave the way for what's become a great friendship, personal connection today? Doesn't really matter because it's just great that it happened, but it's a very intriguing question. And
Just
then
a coincidence.
yeah, and then those conversations that I would imagine at some level you risked feeling uncomfortable sitting there, like probably the only person who has imaginary conversations in a boardroom there physically with Abraham Lincoln and Benjamin Franklin. How much of what you allow yourself to do today is a result of that? It's a mystery, but a fun question. And I personally think that, I owe my 19-year-old self and maybe your 19-year-old self gratitude for like, hey, thanks for getting crazy and actually defying what you called reality, because you helped me live in what actually is reality, which is a realm where a lot is possible. And certainly a significant amount of things are possible that are beyond your current comprehension. I think that's reality. That small box called our comfort zone and belief system, that's science fiction. We make that shit up and then we believe it. That's not reality though.
Yeah, you're like putting yourself in a cage, and in spite of my rage, I'm still just around in a cage.
And the door of the cage is open. We just either stay inside or we walk out.
Yeah, but it's the conditioning, the Prussian schooling philosophy, and just like developing good workers to make sure they follow orders, and when the bell rings, you go back to work or take your little break and shit.
Yeah, just be an obedient person, which you're really only obedient to what you believe. But yeah, go through.
Yeah, but if you don't follow the rules, then you get. I used to get paddled when I was in school for, I guess, like talking in class or whatever. Maybe I got into a couple fights, and but so like, you step out of line. I mean, I've been to jail like 5 times, like for weed and coke and a couple other things, but nothing terribly horrible. But what's your relationship with like weed and psychedelics, if I might ask?
Yeah, of course. Weed specifically, I've only used that once, and it's been a long time. I think it was September 2007. And I unfortunately had a negative reaction where at the time, like on it, I was like, "Ooh, this feels amazing." And it was quite psychedelic and like a beneficial experience. But then the next day I broke out in the itchiest hives all over my body. I don't know if it was like a allergy to the actual weed or if there was some kind of pesticide in there. It was allegedly organic, but regardless, it was uncomfortable enough that I thought, well, I just don't feel the draw, the risk reward ratio. Plus, I personally have a very addictive personality. And when I was on it the once, it's like, I really like this. And me really liking something can be an issue, even beyond any level of chemical addiction, just psychological. But then, with the traditional psychedelics, I've had, I would say, a limited amount of experiences that have been impactful. With psychedelics, I think they have more of a barometer on them. With an addictive personality, they're just easier for me to live in harmony with. So with that said, I don't use psychedelics frequently. It's actually probably been a couple of years since I've used any, but my first experience was with LSD, and that was at the time the most profound day of my life.
Mhm.
Just felt so tapped in and connected to God, and it felt as though my higher self was directly communicating with me. It was, whether it's all a hallucination or actual reality, doesn't matter, because it was very beneficial to me. And then there's been some mushroom experiences, and then I think several years ago I had a very powerful, very uncomfortable, and also very beautiful ayahuasca ceremony in Costa Rica. And that was, I mean, really beyond words. And I know at times, for people listening, you hear people talk about their psychedelic experience, and it's kind of like, oh, this again. But it truly is beyond words. I feel as though some of what I allow myself to do, as far as, in my opinion, being of service to humanity and taking risks that drive me outside of my comfort zone, which therefore I go into fears, but willing to feel that anyway. I feel as though there's a lot of empowerment there from that specific ceremony.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Because I guess the perception would be that you're like fucking tripping every day or something. I don't, because I
would never get anything done.
I know, right? And obviously you can't do that, and I'm more of an active, I guess, like user or whatever of psychedelics, but still you only do, at most you're going to do it like once a month. Yeah. And that's still a lot, probably for anyone. But I have also an addictive personality, and I'm trying to keep things in check a bit. So I just smoke weed, though. I'm not like I don't do anything else except like mushrooms and coke and some heroin. I'm just kidding.
Microdose meth. Let's really get stuff done today.
Oh, that's funny. I was listening to Tim Dillon this morning or yesterday, and there's this latest some kind of news story about how it's like food equality or net neutrality with food, and no food is any worse than any other food. So you can either eat a salad or you can eat a bowl of cereal with some candy in it. It's the same thing.
Wow. Equity or social equity for food. Dear God.
It's and there's some new like national campaign for this type of belief structure or whatever, that no food is bad food.
That campaign called Imagination?
Yeah, it's like you got to use your imagination to come up with some of this stuff, and you're supposed to just believe it. It's like we're being gaslit, but it's not true. But because they're saying it, and if you say the opposite, then you're going to offend a plus size person. And I'm just like, okay, I don't know.
Yeah, man. This formula that they use all across the board now on food, it's the same predictable formula where they tell you something that's objectively not true, but they set up a consequence. Like if you were to actually speak the truth and advocate the truth, here's the consequence. You're either racist, or here you're shaming obese people. So it's an intimidation tactic. And I don't think being a slave to fear empowers anyone. And when I look at I would call it the useful idiots advocating for now like food equality, maybe they have an inherently bad agenda. Maybe they have good intentions and they're just idiots promoting idiocracy. I've done my best to get out of the business of basically just calling them out, because it kind of empowers them. Hey, they can't be doing this. It's like, no, it's our fault if we subscribe to it. Mm-hmm. Nobody's going to enslave us with fear unless we volunteer for it. So I don't know, for whatever that's worth, that helps me stay more amused and laugh at things that, I mean, that's actually more absurd than what I would guess I'd learn today, but okay.
Yeah. That's the next craze.
I wonder when they're going to outlaw exercise. Like, exercise is a hate crime.
Yeah, you're shaming people.
Yeah, it's shaming people. It's aggression towards the obese community.
You're an ableist. You're an ableist. I was making a joke about being pro ableist. I'm coming out as an ableist too. And I was texting one of my comedian friends, Robbie the Fire Bernstein, and he's like, I wouldn't touch that. That could be bad for your business. And I shoot him my ideas because he's a comedian and I want him to actually use it. I'm not going to really put it out there. But like, I was like, what's wrong with being pro people that have able bodies? Like, is that bad? Like, am I a bad person because but I'm not anti-disabled.
Yeah.
But it's like being pro healthy.
Yeah, to me, pro ableist means you're pro ability. So to me, that implies whatever you are, live up to the best of your abilities. Like that's actually called empowerment. But of course, that feels yucky to people who love complacency. Have you heard of trans-ableist people?
Tell me.
This one, it's nothing but a straight up mental illness. But there's a group of people, I've read articles, seen pictures, they're able-bodied people who identify as disabled. Oh, no. Like, who I really am is an amputee. Now, some of them have actually gone to the extent of cutting off limbs because they truly feel who I am is an amputee. There's some people who believe who they truly are is a blind person. And some of these people have poured bleach in their eyes to burn their eyes out. And just, to me, there's no debate about that's a mental illness. And if someone desperately needs help, the worst thing we can do is deny them the help and deny them the reality that you need help. It's like if I saw a 4-year-old playing in the middle of the street out in traffic and he's like, hey, I'm Batman, I'm Crusader. I'm like, no, you're not. Let me get you off the street. You need help. You need to be protected from yourself right now. To me, that's kind of what's going on with trans-ableism.
The universe was like, this is a taboo topic. You will not discuss this.
We got censored, didn't we?
They're watching me. I know I'm just kidding. I always think people are watching, but and they are, I guess, but only if you do something like, if you step out of line so far that they need to go and collect a bunch of data and be like, oh, you said this and this and this and this. Yeah. I think until you're making significant enough waves against the system, they'll let it ride.
Yeah, small fish, big fish. They choose who they commit tyranny against. Probably. Yeah,
it's kind of scary because of all the people I work with. They're all a lot of them are cancelable.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, you're saying stuff that you're maybe not supposed to say, or
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, when they're all coming for you, or when will they? Because they went for the one guy and it wasn't you, so you didn't say anything, and then they went for this other guy and it wasn't you, so you didn't say anything. But eventually they're going to come for you, and then who's going to speak up for you?
That's the thing, and I think what the past few years of cancel culture and that kind of thing has really taught us is, and I'll just use the term, the more you go woke and the more you virtue signal, the easier it is in the short term, but worse it is in the long term. We see that across the board with companies, and we see it across the board with entertainers where, if someone's there's a difference between virtue signaling and having actual principles. And my perspective, whether someone's an entertainer or business, the people who have principles and stick with them, whether, the skies are clear or there's a shit storm of cancel culture rolling in at them, the people who stick to their principles no matter what, they seem like they've grown more than the alternative vastly over the past few years. And yeah, short term, it can be a pain in the butt, but long term, it's, I don't know. I think we are always better off when we know what we stand for, we know what our perspective of truth is, and we abandon it for fucking no one, especially when it's a mob of people trying to use fear and intimidation to get us to conform into something that we're not. I don't know. That's my thought.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Just stick to what you believe and don't change for other people, just so you can feel good for the short term, or like not feel shamed, because they're trying to like shame us into conformity of this new thought system and language, and you speak these words, don't say those words, and it's just like
it's emotional coercion. And I think there's still, for us, there still needs to be a distinction between what are our principles, what's my truth, what's the message, and then abandoning that for fucking no one, being there versus using that as a justification to be mean. So I think we do need to check ourselves and not just rationalize like, hey, maybe I'm being an asshole, but I'm not going to see that because it's like, no, I'm speaking my truth. There's plenty of people who have perspectives that I agree with, but I can look at and be like, I agree with your perspective, but you're definitely being an asshole right now. I know for myself, at times I need to point the finger and be like, yeah, I'm not standing for my principle right now. I'm using those words, but I'm being an asshole. And I want to be better than that. I want to be kind, respectful, bold when necessary, but always stick to the principles.
And I think that shines through very clearly. You come through as an authentic, genuinely good person who's trying to make the world a better place through like comedy and levity, trying to, but also kind of awakening people to the truth through comedy. And I mean, I think it's really shining through. You're obviously doing a great job. You're growing your audience and people come to you. And it's funny because I get my news a lot of times from like you and I'm sorry, not all the time, but like from Rogan and because I feel like I'm getting it from an unbiased source that doesn't have an agenda other than to kind of spread truth and laughter.
Yeah. It always scares me when people tell me they get most of their news from me. It's scary, but also I look at the alternatives in the world and realize like, well, yeah, I understand that, because the people who I look to, not for like what's my perspective, but for news, like information I want to consider, and I'll cross-reference that against other information, look for hypocrisies, holes, correlate, so all that. But like I'll watch people, Russell Brand, Rogan, who, to the best of my ability, it seems like their heart's in the right spot. They have a genuine dedication and give a very earnest effort of discernment to look for what's actually real. They're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Nobody's, like, we all make mistakes. But seeing that earnest effort is most important. You flip on most news channels and it's like, well, there's no earnest effort whatsoever to deliver people a true perspective. It's all what's
sponsored by Pfizer.
Yeah.
So it's like you probably wouldn't say anything negative about SHEATH on a video sponsored by SHEATH.
No, I definitely will.
Well, you should.
You kind of gave me permission to do that.
No,
but yeah, wouldn't it be interesting if we had a news channel, SHEATH is the principal sponsor, and we come out with like underwear mandates, like, hey, everybody, you got to wear SHEATH. If you don't, you're definitely going to get gonorrhea. Here's the research that we just made up that proves that you're putting your grandma at risk if you don't wear sheath. Just all intimidation.
I know. Yeah. Do you want children to die? I mean, like, seriously.
Yeah. Like, what are we trying to do here?
Yeah. Do you not care?
Robert, I think if we can get $750 million in funding, we could put this plan into place. Just let's live in this world for a second. We get Klaus Schwab on board. That guy, have you seen the picture of him wearing women's lingerie on the beach?
That was so weird.
So weird. Clearly, he needs sheath underwear. Totally. So he'll be on board. You know, he'll probably take 30% of the budget because Klaus is he's a businessman. Obviously, Bill Gates, he's got to do studies of sheath underwear on kids in Africa. Most of them will probably die, but those studies will look really good. Doing our friend. Then CNN, Biden administration. That's kind of what it is now. But I think they'll be on board. So $750 million in funding. Can you get that done by the end of the week, Robert?
I'll see what I can do.
I'll put together a flow chart and a spreadsheet. You raise $750 million. Going to hit the ground running early next week on this.
And we'll get you. Yeah, you'll run the marketing side. And,
absolutely. And can you imagine the military's on board? You get dishonorably discharged if you don't wear sheath underwear.
Yeah, because you're not in the proper uniform. So exactly. There you go. So side note, funny, like Dave Smith, he's a libertarian.
Oh yeah, I think I've met him.
Oh yeah, he's awesome, and I've met him briefly. And he wears sheath, and could possibly be the libertarian candidate. And obviously, the libertarian candidate's not going to win. But having a presidential candidate wearing your underwear, it's going to be pretty cool. Yeah, so that's what I'm hoping he can make this debate stage, because he would do really well, I think, because he's really, good at crowd work and talking shit.
Yeah,
and he's really smart.
I must admit, I'm not super informed of the political players in the libertarian movement, maybe just a little. Who, are there many people that are above him in terms of libertarian popularity?
Not anymore. He was, you had Gary Johnson. That's who anyways, that's who I voted for. And I did not vote last time because just the situation. And
well, you had many great options.
Yeah, I had the two options. And so Joe Jorgensen lost, but Rogan voted. I'm not a sycophant, but I'm just like, anyways, I'm influenced by him like a lot of us are. And but he's had Dave Smith on a couple times, and I think Dave's coming on again in a couple of days. He's going to be in Austin. He's playing 2 shows at the Creek in the Cave. Dave Smith is. He keeps promoting I'm going to be in Austin, so I really think he's going back on Rogan like this coming week, and so you'll maybe listen to that one. And he just spits that libertarian shit or whatever, and I like listening to him. It's one of my favorite podcasts.
Has Joe Jorgensen left the scene of the libertarian candidates?
No, she's still around, but she just wasn't. She was like doing a lot of woke stuff, I guess, that was not really jiving with the Dave Smith part of the Libertarian Party. Yeah. And he was like calling her out on trying to be like pro Black Lives Matter, which of course all Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. Organization is objectively corrupt. The statement is like, of course they matter.
Yeah. It's like, okay. Anyways, that's just a weird thing. I said all lives matter one time and I got blasted. So
yeah,
sorry.
It's funny, like 20 years ago, if you said all lives don't matter, it's like, what are you like? Are you a genocidal maniac? Like who doesn't matter?
Right. No. Yeah. We don't have to get into that, but I think he's going to be the candidate. And if he is, then that'll be fun. And cool. So are you going to Skankfest?
No.
Heard of that?
I have not heard of it. What is it?
It's a comedy festival. It's going to be in Vegas in October 14th through the 16th. A lot of the biggest like a lot of like Legion of Skanks, Shane Gillis, Mark Norman, Joe List, like a lot of New York, Ari Shaffir, those guys.
Oh, sounds incredible.
Yeah, it's going to be, it should be fun. So maybe next time you go, because you're doing a tour, you're touring.
Yeah, kind of like a never ending tour. It's been, I started touring, it's going to be 5 years ago this November.
Wow.
And never stopped. And now that I've got a little boy, he's a year and a half, I've got new boundaries where like only 2 weekends a month will I be touring. And then coming up this winter, I am taking an off season. I'll be taking 3 months off the road. I just feel a craving, like I want an off season and, you know, kind of whatever, hibernate and
just sort
recharge for sure. And it's being on stage. It's my favorite part of what I get to do. But the off season is more from airports and being away from my family. And okay, now I'm in a hotel in St. Louis. But man, I love being able to travel around and see different, you know, the U.S. has so many different subcultures within it. Any city is different. And then being on stage. But yeah, long story short, yes, I'm touring.
Right on. Well, you go to like jpsears.com, check out
awakenwithjp.com. I think someone who's in the Juice Plus kind of multi-level marketing company, way back in the day, they got jpsears.com. And I was in my early 20s. I'm like, damn it. Awakenwithjp.com.
Well, check that out. Check him out. Check out his channel. Check out this Sheath sponsored videos on his new channel, JP Reacts. You get a more authentic side of him. It's not all fun and games and like the acting part of it. So, and I could talk to you for a lot longer, but I'm going to want to respect your time. I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story with us and my audience.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, Robert, and thank you for what you do. I mean, you bring a valuable, fun product to the world. It's great to be partnered with you. I love that. I've been wearing Sheath long before we were working together. And thank you for just being the genuine, curious, high vibe person that you are. It's a real pleasure to get to talk to you one-on-one like this.
It was so fun and so gratifying. I really appreciate it. I won't continue on that too much. Just it was a pleasure, and hopefully we'll get to, you know, meet each other in person in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I think we will.
All right, brother. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm gonna let you get back to your day. Everyone out there, this has been another fucking Robert Patton Global Podcast. We bring the best fucking people on here. We've had best-selling authors Michael Malice, UFC champion of the world Brandon Marino, and now JP Sears. So you're welcome. Thanks, JP.
You betcha. See you soon, brother.
See you later. All right. You guys, that was awesome. That was a treat for me. I was coming off COVID, still coming off COVID, but I didn't want to have to reschedule that interview because it was such a big fish, if you will. Fucking JP Sears. Check out his channel. And we're like right in line with how we came to be where we are, as far as like the books we've read, the philosophies we've practiced, and the fact that our trajectory is intersected right here today. It was amazing. I'm so grateful. Thank you everyone for being here, watching this podcast. It means a lot to me, and we'll be back next week.